there's an Allen connection, and he won't, cost you draft assets like Metcalf would.
I'm not trying to be jerky here, but did you say tall?
He's not that tall?
He's 5'11".
Kirk?
Yeah.
No, I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
That's tall for some. I'm 5'11".
It's tall for children.
I'm 5'11". I've been wearing shoes lately where I'm a little bit taller than that. It's tall for children. That's right. All right. He's not tall and skinny, Kirk? Okay. That's how I see him in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
But
no.
I've liked the player.
I've liked him too. I don't mind considering whether you could change it or not. It's just that's how he's been used. So I guess I'm guilty of typecasting him. I also don't. I don't know. I don't want this to come out the wrong way. I don't want them to sign him just because he's friends with Josh Allen. I would worry about that. Between how he's been used most effectively in his career in the slot and that, I would just feel like I'm trying to really force something here. And so I don't know. I would like to do something different.
You don't need me every once in a while tweaking with like how Allen texted about drafting Kincaid and he wanted Coleman.
Right.
Can we get somebody he doesn't know? You might like that more in a vacuum.
Right. It's more your point, I feel like, but I don't know. I saw that picture of them at the I'm just like, no, come on.
Notably not in that picture, DK Metcalf.
Right.
Was not in attendance at the Tiger Woods golf event for Allen's bachelor party. 2020 Cardinals, that's a pretty good team on offense with Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Kirk. There were some numbers there with him. Is he shot or something? I would guess not, again, because of the nature of his injury. I don't know. I'm not close to it. 803-0550, Sam Panayotovich at 4, Sal at 5, Sabres pregame at 6. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR. Welcome back, and thank you for listening. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Our friend Sam Panayotovich from the BetMGM Network will join us in about 15 minutes. It's March. Got to bone up on college basketball. I bet that's like a lot of what he's working on. And that horse stuff, DK Horse.
the horse stuff.
The horse stuff, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's actually affiliated with DK Horse.
No, he's not. Yeah, that's correct. That's good point. Yeah. Here's Matt with us. Hi, Matt.
How you doing?
Good, Matt. Thanks for calling us. We appreciate it very much.
Good. So I just wanted to add the point of I think the James Cook decision is going to play a pretty big impact on whether or not we want to sign DK or not. Because, I mean, he had 16 touchdowns last year, and Matt Collins led the team in receiving touchdowns, and I don't think either of those things are really sustainable. As much as the Bills, they had 29, they averaged 29 points a game last year. I just don't think it's going to be sustainable with either of those players continuing to lead the team in touchdowns on their field. So, I think in terms of money, James Cook, he wants $15 million a year. If DK wants 30, 35, that's like paying James Cook 15 and then another receiver another 15. So I'd rather just get DK and go ahead and get another rookie or run Ray Davis. And it would also open up the run game, too, if you don't think that James Cook is, going to be around. So that's all I had to say.
Thanks, Matt. I mean, Holland's not to, be picky about this. If it's going to be 5 that leads the team in touchdown catches, Hollins is capable of doing that again. But I see your point, and I agree on Cook. So, yeah, I mean, it's a very, to me, in certain ways, the Bills of last season, kind of a confusing team. The turnover stuff, needless to say, really helped with the scoring and the point differential. I mean, they had more than their share of drives that started on the plus side of the field because of turnovers, and they just did not turn the ball over themselves hardly ever. So, you have that kind of an advantage, a +2 per week or whatever you kind of have there, then that's going to help you in terms of points. Not that they weren't good, but I accept and agree with, like, the defense needs more help at this moment. That's got to be said. That's got to be right. But I don't think their offense is like all set, really. And I would love new talent at a skill position there. Cook is probably going to be back. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't know what they're going to end up paying him. But this is part of why I'm so excited about, have gotten really kind of suddenly so excited about the idea of Metcalf, is because I'm not thinking of them so much as like 30 points a game Bills, as more just kind of like a more conservative, efficient team that, had kind of a dream season. And I think, like a previous caller this hour, juicing that offense up is not a bad thing. I mean, they might end up needing to have done that. So I'm on board. I don't know what he's going to cost, but I would love it. I would love to see it.
The scariest thing to me about doing a Cook contract now is that you're doing it coming off of that season. And I can appreciate wanting to reward your guys. I think, that matters to the locker room. I would think almost to a man, the guys on the team are rooting for him to get a contract that is somewhere right at or near the going market rate. But he does not play the amount of snaps that a guy like Barkley plays. And he's coming off a year where he jumped from 2 rushing touchdowns to 16. So I'm buying at the absolute peak there. And I don't know. I'm not sure at this point what kicking that down the road would do to Cook, to the team even, like how everyone would react to that. But the Bills do not have to do anything right now with him. I mean, they just don't. Again, I can get wanting to and liking the idea, but the player has to be cooperative to some extent, because I cannot foresee them coming in, even with the new Barkley extension, on a contract that pays him $15 million a year to play 52% of the snaps or whatever he plays. I just can't. I don't think that's good asset allocation.
I just got an email from DK Horse.
Come on.
I did. They want me to complete a survey. As a valued DK Horse player.
Oh, shut up.
We'd like your input. That means that they're a valued DK Horse player. They need to reword that in a brief survey. At the expiration of the survey, we will credit your account with $5 asterisk.
Well, I mean, there is that.
Oh, okay. The asterisk is actually saying, no, you can actually take the money. You don't have to bet it. Like, it's not a bonus bet or anything like that. You can actually just have, here's $5. I am a valued DK Horse player, though. Having used it once.
You made exactly one wager there? Yeah.
Exactly one, parentheses one, and one exactly zero.
Uno.
I am valued, though. That's good to read. You like hearing that. You like to be valued.
I don't know. I'd feel patronized.
I'm going to take the survey. Because what's it going to ask me? How often do you use it? Once ever. How often do you use the app? I'm going to do it. Sam Panayotovich after sports. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
It is Sabres game night tonight. They are on the road in Tampa Bay. Pregame at 6 for puck drop at 7. Jason Zucker still dealing with an injury. Head coach Lindy Ruff did say the team are now going to try a different approach after limited progress and some other injury updates. Down in Rochester, forward Victor Neitchev undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. In the NHL as a whole, we are 23 hours away from the trade deadline. Nothing from Buffalo yet, though some moves around the league from today. The Devils are acquiring defenseman Brian Duhlman from the Ducks for a second and forward Herman Trapp. And Vegas, they get a reunion with forward Riley Smith. They did send to the Rangers forward Brendan Brisson and a third. Smith had previously been with Vegas from 2017 to 2023. In the NFL, more trade requests. We'll get to that here in just a second. The Bills, though, are releasing punter Sam Martin. The team officially announced that. And reportedly, this will save the Bills $1.9 million in cap space. The 35-year-old had been with the organization since 2022 and then staying with Buffalo. Former Bills center Mitch Morse announced his retirement after 10 seasons in the NFL. Morse was with the Bills for 5 seasons from 2019 to 2023. He achieved his lone Pro Bowl while with the organization back in 2022. Morse also had stops in Kansas City and Jacksonville. And then the Bengals. They have given permission for a trade to edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. 30-year-old has had 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. And then Diane Rossini, she is reporting the Seahawks are looking for a first and a third for wide receiver DK Metcalf. And then in college hoops, Niagara, they're going to finish out the regular season with a 2-game road trip. It starts tonight against St. Peter's at 7. That game's going to be over on AM 1400. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Mike Schopp.
You might be mocking me or you might be staunchly agreeing with me. I can't tell.
I'm mocking you.
And the Bulldog.
What is Fozzie Bear's role in this production?
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
I have a new phone. All the apps are a little bit smaller, but I'm getting used to it. Take me to New York. The BetMGM app wants me to answer. Are you trying to play in New York? I am. I'm going to take the ride to New York from apparently Pennsylvania and find out what the spread is on Sabres Lightning. What? Actually, it's funny because I'm going to Pennsylvania tomorrow.
Why do you need what? Wait, what? I didn't.
It's okay. None of it was interesting.
Can't you change settings to make the fonts bigger? Yes, right. You did, but it's new. You haven't done any of that.
Haven't gotten to that yet.
All right. Gotcha.
On the line is the host of Bet Sweats, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider Sam Peniottovich. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. And be sure to catch Bet Sweats live 9 to noon on the newly rebranded BetMGM network on the Odyssey app. Sam, are you so good that you would know kind of like by state what's allowed?
Well, we're talking sports betting, right? Nothing else?
Yes.
I know you can bet MGM in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of the biggest gambling states in the country in terms of like the amount of outs that they have, the amount of legal operators, and I believe, I'm going to have to look this up as I talk, I believe they have a 33% state tax. So that state government makes a killing. So for every dollar the state actualizes or the sports book actualizes, the book gets 33%, which is crazy.
The state does.
The state gets 33%.
Yeah.
The state does, right. The state gets 33% of the book's dollar. My bad. We finally got there together.
Yeah, I remember in the first days of this legalized betting stuff, driving to Pennsylvania to place my first big bet. You know, when you sign up for that first time, and I drove across toward Erie and just sat at a restaurant and tried to figure out. I had $500, where if you lost, you would get the money back and have a chance to win it another time. And sat there and stared at it. Very exciting times, trying to figure out which. And I won. Cowboys-Rams under on a Sunday night football game. I think it was week 1 a few years ago. Anyway, Sam, there's that story. Tampa minus 250.
And then you failed to realize you had to drive back to Pennsylvania every time you wanted to bet.
Well, we got there eventually here in New York. We can't bet awards. And we can't bet some of this fun stuff like quarterback carousel. Who will be this player's next team? Wide receivers. BetOnline has this offshore. They have like Amari Cooper for one today. Where will he go next? Have you dabbled into any of that, where Aaron Rodgers and these guys might end up signing?
It's interesting you bring that up because in Massachusetts, we don't have a lot of that individualized stuff either. I can't bet on certain markets that my brother can in Illinois. So, no, I have not gotten down yet. The Rodgers and Adams thing is interesting, though, because we did talk about this on the show the other day. It feels like those two are a package deal, doesn't it? So I want to say Aaron Rodgers was like minus 120 or something to go to the Giants, but Davante Adams was 12-1. And I thought to myself, that's not right, because if Rodgers goes there, Adams is probably right behind him, isn't he?
I get why anyone would say that or think that. What the hell's with Davante Adams? Like, just go play with someone else. You're good. Go, stop hitching your wagon. He's gonna die on the field one of these days. Like, go fly, be free on your own, Davante.
It's been a weird career arc for him because he came on. Remember, he went to Fresno State, so he wasn't expected to be like this top-tier all-pro wide receiver. And then, he's in Green Bay catching 12 touchdowns, 10, 13, 18, 11, 14, and then he gets traded to Vegas. Or maybe, I don't remember if it was a trade or he signed there, and then he ends up reuniting. Yeah. Okay, and then he reunites with Rodgers with the Jets and really doesn't do all that much. And that team was dead to rights to begin with. But, I mean, he's at that age now, not to say that 32 is an old man, but for NFL receivers, it's certainly not the case of him being a spring chicken anymore. So I don't know. Like, I think somebody is going to go to the Chargers. Like, if I'm Jim Harbaugh and I clean out the trash, as he always does in the first year or two, wherever he goes, and you look at his resume, he's been unbelievable at taking his team to the next level. They have the line play. I think they have the backs with Dobbins and Edwards, and they've got Haskins. They need receivers outside of Ladd McConkey. And I think the Chargers are a very interesting team because they know with the coach that they have in play, they can contend, and he can keep a lot of games close, especially in the playoffs. I think the Chargers get either DK Metcalf or Davante Adams, and I can't figure out which one yet.
We've been talking about Metcalf here, and that makes sense to me too. Don't forget either, I'm not sure if it mattered in his being traded to Vegas, but the narrative there was it was Derek Carr who was his college quarterback,
right.
As Adam Levitan would call the shower narrative. So you're supposed to like Davante Adams in that situation with Carr, but he's got to have a buddy at quarterback, I guess, or else he's unhappy.
Yeah, all Rodgers needs is all of his friends, all of his old coaches, everything else to go right, and then maybe they'll make the playoffs. It's sad. It honestly is. And you're talking to a Chicago kid who had to watch Michael Jordan play with the Wizards. It's bad when they just can't let go. They were so great for so long, and some guys just can't walk away. Like Manny Ramirez playing for the White Sox. What a disaster that was. He's a Red Sox. He's a Cleveland Indian. He is not a Chicago White Sox, but some guys just can't let go.
That happened?
Oh, yeah. Manny was a White Sox for 2 months, and he hit like 100, like .100. It was really bad.
Right. Well, I think Adams has still got – there's a lot of the advanced metrics and stuff will tell you that despite his age and the results the Jets had overall, that he still got open a lot. He still did basically what he's done since he broke through. So I'm not going to tell you he's going to defy the age curve forever, but I feel like there's – and who knows, the cliff could be this year, but I don't think he's fallen off a cliff yet.
Right. Just to be clear, I was talking about Rodgers, not Adams.
Gotcha. Yep.
Would you guys welcome Adams with open arms in Buffalo?
I saw an estimate on a contract for him that was modest enough that that's how I know that he was, still pretty good at getting open last year, because I saw an estimate for a contract and went, well, if he wanted to come here, I think I would have to be open to that. It was like 2 years, $27 million or something, which, for a guy that has had that career and still is reasonably close to what he's been, I think I would do that.
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, and maybe you guys. Here we go. If I just hit the tab that says playoffs, I'm going to guess that he hasn't played in much more than 10 playoff games, and I know that he hasn't gone like super deep. I do remember the one year they played in the NFC Championship, I think, against Atlanta, and just got pounded down in Atlanta. That was the 44-21 Falcons game. But you would think a guy like that just wants to give it one more go, maybe new city, new team, win a championship. And there are not many teams, outside of that Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City that are built to win now in the AFC. Now, the NFC is a different conversation. I think it's a lot more wide open than people think. It's not easy to go back-to-back, so the Eagles are going to go through some things next year. But, yeah, I mean, if he comes in motivated and hungry enough to win, that's a no-brainer at that price, especially at that price that you brought up. If it's under $30 million, why not?
Isn't it true that no team has won the NFC East back-to-back in like 20 years, let alone the conference? So I don't know if there's a reason for that, but Washington – maybe next year. Sam Panayotovich joining us on the West Her hotline. Do any of these potential off-season moves in the NFL, maybe starting with Myles Garrett, would you expect any of them to move the meter, so to speak, in the futures market? Like if the Bills got Myles Garrett, would their odds shorten?
Maybe 50 cents. I mean, I'm looking at the range right now. The best price on Buffalo to win it all is 8-1. They get Garrett, they go down to 750 maybe. And then, of course, there's the push. So the books make the adjustment, and then people still want to bet Buffalo. So maybe at the end of the day, the combination of the book and the better moves it $1, but he's not going to move it from 8-1 to 5-1. I think what's interesting is if he goes to a team, and I'm not saying, let me be very upfront here, I'm not saying bet this team because people hear what they want sometimes on the radio. Don't you guys know it? But the Commanders already so low. I mean, they are as low as, 14-1 to win the Super Bowl, which I would not bet. I love Daniels, but year 2 quarterbacks it's really tough. Just ask C.J. Stroud how tough it is to do that in the second year. They're like 14-1. If they get Garrett, I mean, how much lower can you go on Washington? Now, one book has 20-1. MGM has 18. You could see that 20 get cut down a little bit, but it's hard to put the Washington Commanders any lower than 14-1 to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, we spent really day after day here. It's Garrett and now Metcalf. How about Metcalf in that way? Do you think he's any kind of a meter mover, or is it kind of the same conversation?
Less than an edge guy like Garrett. The books will tell you that guys off the edge like your Micah Parsons of the world, those guys could be worth like 1.5, 2 points to the betting line. So if they're in or out, that number swings, of course. And then a legit wide receiver, not that Adams is Jefferson or Chase, but those guys like the Jeffersons and the Chases of the world, the CeeDee Lambs, those guys are worth like 1.5 points. So mathematically, the edge guy that sacks the quarterback is worth a smidge more, and that would be the same case in the future market. I think it's more the appetite to bet the teams once they get those guys. But I don't know that, whether it be Myles Garrett or Joey Bosa or DK Metcalf or Devontae Adams, I don't think any of them scare the bookmaker. I mean, even if Devontae Adams goes to the Chiefs, that's not going to change the calculus down there. So it's really hard for one player that isn't a quarterback to shift the market on its head.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the Bengals, Sam? Like today, it's Trey Hendrickson being given permission to ask for a trade. Maybe T. Higgins is still there on the franchise tag, or maybe not. Chase still not a deal. Are they more a team for you that because of Burrow and the ceiling that you might think is good value, or are they coming apart?
Their defense is just awful, guys, and that's the problem. I mean, to give up 430-plus points last year, not ideal, and I don't know that there's a quick fix there. They're trying a bunch of different concepts and schemes on defense, and none of them seem to work, so it's hard to imagine them making a run. It's not to say that their defense can't get substantially better. I mean, it's hard to be worse than 25th in yards and 25th in points, but I don't know that they have the line play up front, and their quarterback's unbelievable. But you look at what he did last year. I mean, Joe Burrow was incredible. He put up MVP numbers on a team that finished 9-8, but it's not his fault. He threw for almost 5,000 yards, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But they couldn't keep teams out of the end zone. And until that changes, I don't know. I mean, they gave up 44, 41, 38, 37, 35, 34. They lost 4 games when they scored 30 points. I mean, like that can't happen. So until they fix that defense, I want no part of them.
So I saw you and Joe talked a little bit of baseball win totals recently on your show. What do you like?
I went Rockies under 60.5. I think they are the White Sox of this year. Go look at their rotation. You go to Google, type in Rockies, and then roster resource. Fangraphs does a great job of laying everything out. Their rotation has 3 guys that shouldn't be in the majors. I mean, they're just so bad, and any injury to that starting 5 is going to just put them so far behind the 8 ball. And it's going to be fun because they're going to lose a lot. So if you bet that under, like you're betting against the Rockies essentially every day, that's fun. I did it last year with the White Sox. It's just like, you wake up in the morning, did the White Sox lose again? Yes. Did the Rockies lose again? Yes. So I like Colorado under. It's like 60.5, 59.5. And then my favorite bet so far is a future bet on Julio Rodriguez, the Mariners' 24-year-old outfielder. Yeah, I bet him at 25-1 to win the MVP. Is it going to happen? It's a long shot. People love Judge. They love Bobby Witt Jr., but I think Julio is going to have a huge bounce-back year on a team that honestly could be the best in the West.
He just had a bad start last year, but still very young. Yeah, just what you want if you have a pretty bleak pitching staff is to be pitching in Coors Field 81 times. That's what you want for that one. The White Sox bet would have been fun, like you said, last year until July 5th when it was already won or thereabouts. Then
when they traded Dylan Cease, I knew it was a winner. They traded the only pitcher that was like problematic for the opposition, and they traded him, I believe, in February or March. They traded him to the Padres, and then they stopped throwing Garrett Crochet. They shut him down, and they were throwing like Bulldog and Mike Schopp every 5th day. It was unbelievable. They were so bad.
Watch it. I was a junk baller in my day. I could figure out how to get you out. Maybe not at Coors.
Okay.
Maybe not at Coors.
Sure.
I like a team. I've made one of these bets every year, or almost every year, and I look for a team that generally is kind of forgotten about. And the Rockies qualify and the White Sox qualify. I won on Arizona 2 years ago, and all I was doing with Arizona, Sam, was, just not a high-profile team. Maybe their division isn't as deep as people think it is. And they had a terrible bullpen the year before because of how volatile that can be. And I don't know their number. I haven't gotten to this yet, like I said, I think. But I think I might like them again for the same reasons.
Arizona win total
yes.
Or like pennant?
Over.
Okay, win total? I'm going to guess they're about 85.5. Give me like 3 seconds to pull this up. Because they did go to the World Series a couple years ago.
They did.
Arizona win total right now? Wow, what a good guess. 86.5.
Oh, that one win from your guess, though, that might be the reason that I slow down on this idea. But no, 86.5. What I've done a couple times, including that one, is stop short. Like, this is going to be my team. The Braves, when they got Acuna and Albies, was this. I talked myself into them as an overplay, but then they're not going to win in the playoffs, though, which is dumb because the playoffs are so random. Like, if they make it, just go all the way with it. But a couple of times, I should have won more.
I think you should go all in on this Arizona team because that's what you believe in your bones. Don't talk about it, be about it.
Now, listen to that.
Wow, life advice. It's getting teary in here. Sam, how about the basketball as we're getting close to conference tournament time, and of course the big tournament. I know we've touched on this a couple of times over the last few weeks here, but where's your head at as far as value goes heading toward tournament time?
So it's hard to get future value right now. We bet Duke 6 weeks ago to win the whole thing, and we've been kind of planting that flag everywhere we go. And every show we have a Duke alert, which is kind of funny, I think. But there's a market right now, and you guys can bet this in New York. It's the Final Four market. So the team just has to make it, and then you win. I mean, they're going to be a 25-point favorite in the first game. They'll be laying like 12.5, 13 in the second game. They're going to get to the second weekend because they have like 5 NBA players on the roster. And then, assuming they get to that second weekend, you're talking another big favorite, like 8 or 9. And then in the Elite Eight, whether they play a Florida or a Michigan State, they're going to be a 6-point favorite. So they're going to be favored in all 4 of those games that they have to win. And I know people don't want to lay minus 140. They want to bet 100 to win 2,000. They don't want to bet 140 to win 100. But I would be betting that as much as possible. As much as they would let me get down. Duke to make the Final Four, yes, they're the favorite. But I don't see anybody knocking them out before the Final Four. So that wasn't exactly the most valuable advice in the world because they're one of the best teams in the country. But look, last year we saw UConn play Purdue. They were the top 2 seeds. Duke is just a level ahead of everybody else. It's Duke and Auburn, and then there's everybody else. But I would be stunned if they didn't make the Final Four.
Well, I think I might tail on the Rockies. They also have at BetMGM longest winning streak. You want to guess, Bulldog, what that line would be for a bad baseball team over under this many games?
4.5.
Perfect. Exactly right. Four. He's always so good at this. 4.5. Under 4.5 games is minus 110 for the Rockies the whole season. That one you can't really rest until the very end of the season. Right. Didn't the White Sox win their last 3 games or something last year? I think they did.
I don't remember every White Sox stat, but I do know that we were looking this morning at the longest losing streaks from last year. The White Sox had the first, second, and third longest losing streaks.
Oh my.
Yeah. It was like 21, 17, and 14. It was White Sox, White Sox, White Sox. And you're like, oh, they were so bad.
They won 5 of their last 6 to finish 41 and 121.
And weren't a couple of those losing streaks sort of separated by like 1 win? I feel like when they lost 21 in a row, they might have won 1 and then started that 17-gamer or something. Like I just remembered something being really, really awful there.
What a team.
Yeah.
They'd win a game and then go out and party, and then they just start another losing streak.
I guess I could respect that a little bit. Very good. Hey, Sam, thanks for being flexible with us this week. We'll talk again soon.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Sam Panayotovich from Bet Sweats, Odyssey Sports, BetMGM Insider, Betting Insider. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. For all of your betting needs, check out the newly rebranded BetMGM network on the Odyssey app.
You want some news?
Kirk.
There was news. Christian Kirk has been the report yesterday was the Jaguars, this is the way it works, plan to release him. He'd be a free agent next Wednesday when free agency opens. So they technically still had him, and they've traded him to Houston for a 7th-round pick that belonged to somebody else originally, but doesn't matter. But he's going to Houston.
That's the very cheapest possible pick to send. A future 7th. Well, I guess that makes sense. We talked about him about a half an hour ago when his name came up from a caller, Christian Kirk. He was traded before he was cut.
Oh, it's not even next year. This year. It's next year.
Next year.
2026. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if I said that. You did. Whatever. Anyway, I just noticed it.
The Texans did the same thing with Mixon. It was reported that he was being cut by the Bengals. They traded for him before that went through and then extended him. I don't know if that'll happen with Kirk, but he's no longer an option for the Bills. He'll play. You said every time we talked about him that the Bills really didn't have a spot for him, slot receiver for Jacksonville, and that'll work there.
Right.
That's what Diggs was.
But trading for him means they take that contract. I mean, and that was a pretty big, I don't know what's left on it, but that was a big deal. That was the wide receiver explosion that happened 2 off seasons ago. Kirk was one of, I think, do I have the timing right? Was it 2 off seasons ago? How long has he been in Jacksonville? Whenever he went to Jacksonville, it was like, oh my God, look at the money Christian Kirk is getting.
Yeah. And then Davis was kind of the same thing, maybe more just for us noticing that, but he did well. Tutu Atwell today.
$10 million guaranteed fully 1 year.
That's a number for a guy that's done very little in the league. Tutu Atwell. Kind of a little bit of a fantasy crush for me on a very sort of deep sleeper level. Not a big guy, which is maybe putting it mildly, but like the tools and the $10 million from the Rams. What has he done? If I had told you Tutu Atwell, we talk about this free agent list, would go to free agency, somebody would pay him 10. That would have been laughable.
Yeah.
But it happened. From within, didn't even have to go to the market. There's your Tutu Atwell talk.
I've got Kirk at 15.5 base salary. Hang on, I'm having trouble navigating this over here to get to see what his cap hit is. But anyway, it was a big deal when he went 4 years, $72 million to Jacksonville when he went there.
It's good for him in fantasy. It's good for Stroud. 803-0550 if you want to give us a call. We've been talking about DK Metcalf and Myles Garrett again some today. That shouldn't be a surprise. We've got the NHL trade deadline tomorrow at 3, and we'll be looking for anything that happens with the Sabres, who play tonight in Tampa. Tampa made a big move yesterday with Seattle, and it's reported that both of the players they got from the Kraken will play against the Sabres. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Lines open. This is WGR.
Sabres game night tonight. They are on the road in Tampa Bay. Pregame at 6. Puck drop at 7. Jason Zucker still dealing with an injury. Head coach Lindy Ruff did say the team are now trying a different approach after limited progress. We also got some injury updates down in Rochester. Forward Victor Neuchev undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. In the NHL, though, tomorrow is the trade deadline. Nothing from Buffalo. We did have some moves today, notably Vegas. They get a reunion with forward Riley Smith. They send the Rangers forward Brendan Brisson and a third. Smith had previously been with Vegas from 2017 to 2023. In the NFL, we do have a trade. We'll get to that here in just a second. The Bills are beginning to make moves in preparation for the new league year next Wednesday. They are releasing punter Sam Martin, saving them reportedly $1.9 million in cap space. And then former Bills center Mitch Morse, he did announce his retirement today after 10 seasons in the NFL. But to the trade, it is a wide receiver. Houston Texans, they go and acquire Christian Kirk from Jacksonville for a 2026 7th-round pick. The Jags were originally set to release Kirk on March 12th at the start of the new league year. And then in college hoops, Niagara is going to finish out their regular season. A 2-game road trip. It starts tonight against St. Peter's at 7. That game will be over on AM 1400. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
When you look at a player like DK, he's still a big guy. He's really good off the ball. He obviously has come up with some really big catches. And when you're taking a look at just this free agent market of wide receivers, it's not great. So I can see why there are teams poking around to try to see if they can get Seattle to move off this number here, at least off a first-round pick, knowing that, look, he could go to a team and quickly make a difference. But I do think he's going to need a team with a strong head coach. I was told he wants to go to a warm weather organization. Okay. So I think that cuts it down to some of the teams here that we're talking about that would be interested.
Well, I guess the Bills should have made the deal
so slighted
yesterday when it was 58.
Why does DK Metcalf and or Diana Rossini hate Buffalo? 803-0550. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm better now. You need to get that out.
It's not the first time.
Yeah.
It's also not crazy to want that.
Sure. The Chargers. That's warm, right? L.A.?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also indoors.
Kind
of indoors, right?
It's not
it's warm enough to count.
Yeah. Maybe it's too hot.
You know what the Chargers are going to do?
Yeah, anyway, I'll stop.
Sam mentioned the Chargers and Metcalf. They'll do, or Adams, right? He said he wouldn't be surprised or maybe even would predict one of those two guys goes to the Chargers. They're also, it's often, it seems, mocked in drafts that they'll draft the Michigan tight end, Loveland, in the first round. And he was Harbaugh's tight end at Michigan.
Okay.
Running back, I think they'll probably start over. Maybe not. They could bring Dobbins back like Sam said. I don't know if they'll do that. They'd be a candidate for one of those good running backs, too. O'Marion Hampton. What do you think of that?
That's Ohio State.
That's North Carolina.
Oh, sorry, wrong guy. I know
But there are two Buckeyes.
Yeah, Henderson and
Judkins.
Right.
Draft.
That Judkins is going to have to wear some different pants. Did you notice him in the he had like shorts on basically?
I didn't at the combine.
No, when he played in the national title game, he had like his pants were cut off above the knee. Like they've been creeping up, and these were shorts. He's wearing shorts. I don't know if that's allowed in the NFL. So it's going to be a big adjustment for him.
Knickers.
I feel like knickers are below the knee. These were cut above the knee. That's what I'm saying.
Are knickers below the knee?
Yes. Because you got the socks that come up, and knickers are below the knee.
I saw a picture of Tyrod Taylor in knickers. In knickers. Or as he calls them, +4s. I saw a picture of him in a Jets uniform, which I assume was real because he did play for the Jets, not one of these CGI deals where, welcome, just immediately a guy moves. Where's my Christian Kirk Texans uniform picture? But the pants were way up high for Taylor, like at the knees, I would say.
Okay. That's been creeping up. This guy,
literally,
he went shorter than anyone I'd ever seen. So, I mean, that's not really
Quinshawn Judkins.
It's not really any reason to worry about him as a prospect, merely just an observation.
Maybe some teams won't like it. Maybe some will.
Yeah.
He's a guy, he goes to the beat of his own drum.
He's too much of an individual.
Too much of an individual. That's Diana Rossini with Colin Cowherd. 803-0550. I'm going to give you a free agent wide receiver name that I don't know a lot about the player, but I know he has supporters. Somebody that might qualify as an under-the-radar, actually good receiver on that list. De'Ami Brown.
Okay. I've seen his name mentioned as a sneaky good idea, somebody who maybe even might get more from a team this offseason than for that guy, one of those contracts.
That's right. That's, I think, what will happen. Kind of like the Atwell point. Even though he didn't get to free agency, if it is a rough list, and you hear everybody say that, including Diana Rossini, everybody kind of knows that, and B, the bump in the salary cap, there are going to be a lot of those. Running backs and receivers, like, I cannot believe this, which I think, what should that mean to your team? Be willing to spend.
Right.
And you might have to. And it might be one of those off seasons where again, it makes sense because we know that it's not exactly a great list of players. So teams have money to spend, they have needs. And I think this guy could be somebody that surprises in free agency. 4 years in the league, all for Washington. He was a third-round pick in 21. This past season was his best season with
and this is a
Daniels.
This is a downfield guy, right? I think.
Yeah. This year.
Sorry, I don't want to step in it, but
10 yards per reception.
Oh, okay.
So just
no is your answer then. Sorry.
6 foot, so he's tall. 6 foot, 195.
He towers over Christian Kirk.
Played at UNC. He does. DK Metcalf is a very exciting prospect idea, but he's also going to cost me a ton of money for years to come and probably a good draft pick. It's not to say that this player is just as good or would have just the same kind of an impact, but I'm just making a prediction that he'll get paid, if you will, in free agency. Mm-hmm. De'Ami Brown. Sabres and Lightning tonight, pregame at 6. Some chance of slither.
I suppose, yeah.
I don't know if the Lightning do slither.
Yeah, I also don't know if it's, it would really be something if Tampa tonight was having Kiss Night after Tuesday in Montreal, or Monday in Montreal. Kiss Night. Dan and Rob ended up in Tampa, and it's just a bunch of Kiss cover bands playing again in the arena.
They just follow the Sabres around, you mean?
Yeah, right. Or it's just, there's Kiss cover bands everywhere, so there's, I'm sure, plenty of them in the greater Tampa area. And mix in St. Pete, for sure. So, I don't know.
This slither, so organ music in Montreal, Paul Hamilton is on the pregame show with us, and the music's playing behind him. And he said that his father used to call that kind of music slither. And it was a culture club song, Backstreet Boys, ABBA, but just an organ. Mm-hmm. Like you might hear in our lobby.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yep.
And I not only had never heard that term, I did a Google search and couldn't find anything. It's like the first thing ever on Google, right? Nothing came up.
Wow.
Different. Velvet Revolver, Slither, maybe was an album cover or album name or something.
Sure, okay.
But I got nowhere.
Nothing, no musical genre known as Slither that you could find Googling.
Right. Yeah. It might have been Paul's dad's,
thing,
own name for it.
Yeah. Just a very, very small subculture in the greater Amherst area where Paul grew up.
So what's the latest on Jason Zucker? He's still not practicing or playing.
Right. And the Lindy today, I don't know how pointedly he was asked. I guess maybe we'll hear once we get to it in pregame in the 6 o'clock hour. that it is injury related. So I'm guessing he was asked, are you just protecting him because of the deadline? A lot of teams, Riley Smith hadn't played in more than a week, I think, and he got traded today back to Las Vegas. So I would understand anyone covering the team, following the team, wondering whether or not the Sabres were doing the same thing with Zucker. They've had this injury thing, and it's lingering longer than anyone thought it would. And today, Lindy sounded kind of frustrated about it and said they're trying a different approach, different treatment. And I don't know. The different approach is going to be they're going to trade him to L.A. tomorrow, and then he's going to play on Saturday for the Kings. But what do I know? The timing is just worked out that he's missing these games running up to the deadline. I think if he's not signed, they should trade him and will trade him. I would hope. I wanted them to prioritize Greenway over him, and I don't know that they did. They just happened to get a deal done with Greenway. But teams are doing well. Like a guy like Zucker, if the Sabres, wait for it, are willing to keep some money because he's got a $5 million salary, which for teams that are spending all the way to the cap, which most competitive teams in the NHL do year to year, then you're going to have trouble fitting that in. Especially if you're just trading away futures, which, again, most teams that are competitive in the NHL are going to try to do. Zucker fits that profile. I think if you keep half the money, you maybe could get a first-round pick for him. And I think they better do that. Like, if that's available, they better do that.
I don't even think I care what's available. I mean, when does a last-place team not trade a player like this? Can I assume there'd be some interest? I mean, you're saying yes?
Absolutely.
So when does a team in the Sabres condition they want to build around him? Well, maybe that's going too far. They want to have him. Adams told us last Friday that they want to have Zucker and Greenway back on the team, that they're trying to get deals done. Mm-hmm. And they did with Greenway, as you just said. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I guess I can't say just whatever the cost is, but it seems right to assume there'd be some interest so that I could do okay. And a 4-year playoff drought or a 14-year playoff drought, it's the same to me.
I think the only reason you don't is because he's been a good player for you, and if he wants to stay, palm trees and taxes, that is not a compliment, by the way, in case you want, and it's not even to really defend it. It's just to say, like, if you run a hockey team and you can't acquire players and you have a hard time finding your way to even a Jason Zucker last offseason, but he, I don't know if he was out of options, but he took 1 year and $5 million to come here and has shown that he's still worth that. He's having a good year. I would understand the temptation to just bird in the hand. Like he wants to stay, I'm going to keep him. Because if I let him go, I may end up filling his spot with a guy from Rochester who's not ready because I can't attract, a player of his caliber.
I want the roster flexibility. It wouldn't have to be somebody from the minors. It wouldn't have to be a kid. They still are an actual NHL team. They did appeal to him. They do appeal enough to Greenway for him to agree to stay. Keep fighting. We'll see what happens. The deadline is tomorrow at 3:00. I wonder if his injury would cloud any speculation about him. But the Sabres would tell if they're open to trading him, they would tell whoever they're dealing with what it actually is, and I'd be a little concerned on the outside about the fact that he hasn't been playing. And here you have Ruff today talking about like there being some uncertainty about how to proceed. Lines open at 803-0550. Sal Capaccio coming up in about 15 minutes. This is WGR. Notes here. We'll get to Sal in about 10 minutes. The Bills moving on from their punter, Sam Martin, up to $2 million in cap space, just shy of that. They're like me, carving out like necessary space on my phone. Like even today, buying a new phone, they had to transfer all the data.
Right.
Or data, as you might say.
Please tell me it didn't fit on your new phone.
They had no, but I needed to delete like 550 megs to make that possible. So I'm standing there in the store, like just going through, trying to find a few more pictures I don't need. What I do when I take pictures of the sunset is I'll take like 30, and then not always right away go pick a couple of favorites, and then now I'm standing there today in the store going back 6 years on my phone, and there's like a block of 30 sunsets. Like, I don't need this one, this one, this one, this one.
God, that stresses me out.
I know.
I can't even. I don't think it's necessarily. I'm so far on the other extreme that it's probably also not healthy. But like I can't. I just. Every few days I go in and like, I don't really need that. And we're Apple in my house. So not all the devices, but pictures my wife takes end up on my iPad or on my phone. And all right, I don't really need your work schedule. Like, just get this
20 pictures of the dog.
Just get this out of here. I don't even know. So I try to keep it clean. The worst is like vacations, and I have not done this because that's cumbersome. Like both Costa Rica trips that we've been on and last summer's trip to Spain. I took pictures. She took pictures. Many of them are, they're not exactly the same, but they're similar.
Right.
And, there's, like 4 pictures of the same cathedral, like from the same angle. Like, what am I doing here? But I have not quite, that is I need to sit with that. That's not something I can do just, I got 10 minutes before I leave for work. Let me look and see if I can delete some junk, because I'll do that sometimes. That's a project, because, there's pictures there that I think I'll want to have. So I don't want to just willy-nilly delete them.
No.
But there's a lot of duplication there.
Again, this is a comparison to the Bills and their cap space.
Right.
Whittling away. I think I read Spot Track, $8.5 million more to go.
Sam Martin. Yeah, you'd still be in the store if all you had done is delete Sam Martin. I think you got to do more than that.
The Browns made this move on Watson today, transferring salary into a signing bonus that sets them up, as we've all known for since they made the deal with him in the first place, just absolutely massive potential dead cap numbers going forward, and he's probably going to get cut next year. This year, he's injured. So they'll have insurance on him. But like next year, is he on the team? If he's not, the dead cap number is maybe over $100 million.
Yeah.
And so here's all this new cap space from this move today, but it's not enough to get them under. Like, this isn't a spending moment for the Browns. This is just sort of necessary to get them closer to being under, to being compliant. And, again, the Bills are not quite there yet either. But, yeah, I'm sure Cleveland would like to have that be, okay, now we can go shopping. And
right.
Not yet.
No.
Sal, coming up, we'll talk about the Bills' move today, linebackers, and various other Bills and NFL topics. DK Metcalf. Stay tuned. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, the Sabres and Lightning tonight. Pregame at 6 on WGR.
Sabres pregame coming up in an hour as they are in Tampa Bay to take on the Lightning. Puck drop at 7. Jason Zucker still dealing with an injury. Head coach Lindy Ruff did say the team are now trying a different approach after limited progress. Also down in Rochester, forward Victor Neuchev undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. In the NHL, tomorrow is the trade deadline. Nothing yet from Buffalo. We do, though, have some moves from today, notably Vegas. They get a reunion with forward Riley Smith. They send the Rangers forward Brendan Brisson and a third. Smith had previously been with Vegas from 2017 to 2023. In the NFL, the Bills are beginning to make moves in attempts to get cap compliant by the new league year starting Wednesday. They are releasing punter Sam Martin. They're reportedly going to save them $1.9 million in cap space. And then former Bills center Mitch Morse announced his retirement today after 10 seasons in the NFL. We'll get more on this and plenty more when Sal Capaccio joins the show next. Sal also has his latest State of the Bills article up at our website, WGR550.com. And today it is taking a look at the cornerbacks. We do also have a trade. Wide receiver, Houston Texans. They acquire Christian Kirk from Jacksonville for a 2026 7th-round pick. The Jags were originally set to release Kirk on March 12th, the start of the new league year. And the Bengals, they have given permission to edge rusher Trey Hendrickson to seek a trade. The 30-year-old has 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. And then in college hoops, Niagara is going to finish out the regular season with a 2-game road trip. It does start tonight against St. Peter's at 7. That game will be over on AM 1400. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Reportedly, an update from whoever the Texas Rangers are playing in the Cactus League today. Evan Grant, credit to Evan Grant for this tweet from the Dallas Morning News. The batter is Jake Berger. The pitcher is Dylan Cease. The umpire is John Bacon. I didn't do it in the right,
Give me all that
different
again.
order. The umpire's name is Bacon. The pitcher's name is Cease, and the batter's name is Berger. Bacon, Cease, Burger.
I'm not sure I understand cease in there.
It's like cheese, but its name isn't cheese. It's close. Then it'll be Bacon Cheeseburger. Come on, nothing? You don't get it?
No, I mean, I get it, but it's not cheese.
It's not cheese. You're right. It's not good enough
I needed,
for you.
I needed eggs.
You need
in there. I need
eggs. Yeah. Where's the mustard?
Right. Ketchup.
You're trying to turn it. Trying to turn it into Abbott Costello too.
Right.
Maybe it's not that amazing. Sorry. Sal Capaccio on the West Shore Hotline. Sal, how are you?
I get it. You just need the H, right? If you have the H, it's cheese.
You just need the H.
Right. It's a big H, though.
You just need the H.
You can't.
That is a big H. Yes, for sure.
You cannot overstate the importance of the H in this scenario.
Second mention of Dylan Cease on today's show. Sam mentioned him earlier. Sal, where are we at in the state of the Bills? Linebackers is the last one I saw, I think.
Because I just posted cornerbacks before I came on the air.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So, yep. So we can talk about both of them if you'd like. My goal is to get that done, and I was able to before I came on with you guys. I wanted to do that in case you wanted to talk about it. But I did do linebackers a couple days ago, and I just did corners now. So wherever you'd like to start is fine with me.
Well, corners, there are lots of questions.
Sorry, I'm going to scream. Why aren't you guys talking about DK Metcalf?
We will.
Yeah, we will.
I mean,
sure, right?
Right or wrong, one of those two positions is pretty stable, and the other is definitely not.
I think you could look at it that way. But as I examine it, it's really interesting, guys. Out of all the positions here on the team, these two are maybe the two most outside of, I guess, well, yeah, I don't even want to say that because O-line. Here's the deal. Both of these positions have 6 guys under contract and only 1 pending free agent. That's it. The difference is the 1 pending free agent for corner is a starter. The 1 pending free agent for linebacker is a practice squad guy. So that's it. But otherwise, they have 6 guys under contract and only 12 total guys coming back under contract, 2 guys who are scheduled to be free agents, and I would say the other a big similarity would be here. You got two really important players who are going into the final year of their deals: Terrell Bernard at linebacker and Christian Benford at corner.
Right, and so. Yeah, Benford has been sort of at the top of a lot of fans' minds, I think, this offseason. Not that getting Shakir done ahead of him was like offensive or anything. Fine. I like that contract and I like Shakir very much. But Benford is that should be close to a top of market contract, don't you think? Close. I'm not saying he's going to get he's going to be the number one paid corner in the league when he signs his deal, like Trey White was for a few minutes before Jalen Ramsey came in off the top rope over the top of him. But it's going to be competitive for sure. I would think it's warranted, right?
I agree with you. I wrote in the article that when his contract is done, his next contract, it's going to be very lucrative. So however you want to take that, it's at near the top of the market, whatever. It's going to be a lucrative deal. He's a very, very good player. I think the Bills would really love to have him back. The question is, as it is with a lot of these guys, Terrell Bernard, Greg Rousseau, and James Cook, now that Shakir is done, do you try to get something done now or do you wait? And if you do wait, you could tag him. The corner tag next year, probably $22 million, I think is estimated. It's a little over 20 this year. So you could tag him next year, but that would eat up your, a lot of your cap space while you do it. But there's some, you still have control here, but if you go out and do it now, you are committing big dollars, I think, to Christian Benford going forward for sure.
But it probably is still almost always better to get in. One of the things I liked about the timing of the Shakir deal is it was ahead of all this that's coming here, the tail end of this week and into next week when free agency actually opens. Everything usually goes up. So the sooner I could get Benford done, I don't know if they're striving to get this done before the marketplace opens and a lot of guys get paid, but usually you're better off doing that. If you wait, you usually pay somewhat of a penalty.
I agree with that. I would also add that, I did not think they'd be able to lower Shakir's cap number, but they did that because they added a void year. And you'd always think about that, and that's something I should have thought at the time. But by adding a void year, they had one more year to spread it out. They actually lowered Shakir's cap number from 3 and change to 2 and change. They saved almost $1 million. They could do the same thing with Benford this year.
Right.
His salary cap number is 3.4. They could sign him to an extension, even though it's going to be a big one, add 2 void years because you could do that. And you could literally lower it by a little bit or just keep it kind of near where it is. So it really doesn't penalize you this year, but then you'd have those bigger cap hits, obviously, in future years. And I guess you'd also have to think about, what else you have on the roster when it comes to Benford. There's the part of he's a really good player, but also what's on the outside because are you bringing back Rasul Douglas? That's a really interesting question. He didn't have the half year he had in Buffalo the year before that. I do like Jamarcus Ingram a lot. You guys know that. We've talked about him a lot here the last couple of years. Is he ready for a starting role? I'm not really sure. Maybe. I like what I've seen from him. And then really there's a whole lot of because Kyrie Elam hasn't worked out, and that's really been the issue here at corner, I think, when we talk about a lot of these things, is him just not working out as that first-round pick.
Where do you land on corner as a draft priority then? Is that day 2? Is it day 3?
I think it might be day 2. Tell me what happens with Rasul Douglas, I guess, Mike, and I would have a better answer for you.
Or in free agency period. Yeah, right.
I don't know any more than you do, of course, but I'm guessing he's out. I would guess that he's out. He wasn't great, and at the dollars he was making, I would think that they would try to go elsewhere, assuming they have some respectable, way of doing that.
Yeah, if we sit here, a week before the draft and we could look at, what they have in the roster and say, oh, they definitely have their 2 starting outside corners, which would that mean that either that they would sign somebody free agency, then I think it becomes at least a day 2 spot, but it could be day 3 for sure because I want to know what happens to Elam. As I just wrote about, the Bills they're scheduled. They have to pay Kyrie Elam over $4 million. It's guaranteed this year. It's a rookie contract, $4 million. Even if they trade him, they have to pay him that. It's dead cap money. I'm sorry, even if they release him. If they release him, they have to pay him that. If they trade him, the trading team only takes on 2.5. I think that's the best scenario where if the Bills could look to deal him to another team, that trading team would only take on his base salary essentially. The roster, the bonus is already due, and I just think you look around the roster, and that's part of it. And sure, they're always going to want more corners, and I don't know if they would feel comfortable with Jamarcus Ingram stepping into a starting role right now.
Do you think there's a market for Elam? He's still young, and there'd be teams, active GMs who would have liked him, in the draft process. So maybe, but whatever it is, it's going to look bad, right? I mean, you're probably you're just about giving him away.
You'd hope to do as well as the Jaguars did trading Christian Kirk today.
Right. I mean, you could, if you go to, all 31 teams and say, hey, we want to give us anything. You're not going to get anything. You might get a 6th rounder. That's fine if you can get anything at all.
Yeah.
But then if you're the Bills, you trade them. You're clearing $2.5 million. They'd still be responsible for 1.7 dead money. The Bills would. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that would be a nice savings for them if they could clear them off the books. And at this point, I just think after what we've all seen and how it went, especially in the playoffs, it's just time that because here's the alternative: if you don't move on from Elam this offseason, he plays out the final year of his deal. You get nothing for him. So you either, if you can't trade him, really the only options here are you take on over $4 million of dead money, which you could do. He's not on your roster. You could do that and move on from him. They've had guys with dead money before, or you keep him on your roster for that and he just doesn't play, and then you lose him for nothing next year anyway.
There's not really good options here.
Right.
it's where it really ends up. It would stun me. I mean, we did just see Kirk, but Kirk is still a useful player. That, Houston could have just thought, I want to make sure I can get this guy, so I'll give up a 2026 7th rounder to make sure I get him in-house, and I'll take on the contract. With Elam, I mean, that's a guy that can't even get on the field. I just can't imagine a team would like him enough. Like, if I'm some GM that liked him a lot in the draft, and Bean knows that and calls the guy, if I'm the guy, I just go, I'm just going to wait for you to cut him. Thanks. Like, I'm not giving you anything. Yep. Why should I take him at that money to begin with? I mean, I could sign him for the minimum at this point if he's on the street. So I add all that up, and I think you're going to end up with no options there, really.
Right, and I do think there's always a possibility, as Mike, you brought up, that there's a GM that liked him and said, look, he comes to our system, he'll be better than he was for you. He's a man-to-man guy. A heavy man-to-man team says, you know what, we can work with him. We'll give you a 7th rounder. We'd rather get that before he goes to free agency and someone else takes him, so we could do that. So, yeah, I think there's always a possibility. What's interesting about Kirk is, I mean, they traded him to a divisional team, right? I mean, That's always interesting as well. So, yeah, it's interesting how that's going to work out.
You mentioned linebacker, and we haven't talked to you since you posted that. And I think the big question there is whether there's an adjustment coming to Milano's contract. I think you certainly, I want to hear what you think of this. I thought by the end of the year there, like I said frequently once he came back, what they're trying to do is get him up and running again. And I think that worked. I think by the end he looked more like Matt Milano that we were used to seeing. But still, it's a really big cap number for him at his age with his injury history. I wonder how cooperative he'd be about adjusting that.
Yeah, it's a good way you phrase it because, a pay cut of some sort, if you go to him and ask him for that, because there's almost no way they're cutting him before June 1st, or at least not designating him a June 1st cut if they wanted to move on, if he didn't do something like that, because not only would they be taking on a massive cap penalty, they'd have no savings whatsoever, right? So they're just not going to do that. If you designated him a June 1st cut, then they would save $9.6 million. But that money wouldn't be available until June 1st to the Bills. They'd still take on over $6 million in dead cap space. So, I mean, unless what you said happens, I think the way I look at it is, though, they could very well think, we can live with that number right now. We think that Matt is going to, I know for sure that they really believe that, Matt will do everything in his power to be as healthy as he can and work as hard to be on the field again. Of course, though, he is going to be 31. He has had a couple of injuries here, and the way he plays, there's no guarantees anymore. I think it speaks volumes that they were willing to start this guy from the jump when he was ready over Dorian Williams. That might say more to me about what they think about Dorian Williams as a long-term starter than it does about Matt Milano, to be quite honest with you. So if your option is, okay, we go to him, he has to take a pay cut, he's not, are they going to move on? Well, are they that confident in Dorian Williams? I know Dorian Williams played well at times last year. I know he was the team's leading tackler. I'm just bringing the perspective of if the team said Matt Milano off these 2 injuries, he's the starter right away and we're putting him in right now, I think that should tell you something about how they feel about Dorian Williams as well.
Sal Capaccio on the West Her hotline. The Bills released Sam Martin, their punter, today for close to $2 million in cap space. That doesn't get him home, needing to be compliant by next week. What's left to do?
They have to really look at Von Miller's contract. I still am not sure what's going to happen there. I think that, they'd love to work out something where maybe Von is still in Buffalo at a pretty reduced rate, but how much does that? And is he willing to do that for 2 years in a row? There's no way they can live with his contract as it is right now, Von Miller and his cap hit. So that's one thing they have to do. They, I think, have to at least visit what's happening with Greg Rousseau's contract, and they could very well say we'll live with $13+ million. They did it with whatever number it was, $12+ million, I think, for Tremaine Edmonds a couple of years ago. He can go into the 5th year of his deal, and then we'll see. And then does he walk in free agency? But that might be the one where you can really do some real good clearing of your salary cap this year. Get it to about clear $10 million there, and then say, okay, now we'll sign him to an extension. The question is the extension number. What is that? But they have to get under the cap still. I think they still have to do quite a bit of maneuvering here. We're looking at probably around $10 million still. But look, guys, I mean, they could also extend or adjust Josh Allen and come up with a bunch of money as well right there. So there's a few things they need to get done here.
Yeah, what they really need to do, Sal, is clear money so they can acquire both Myles Garrett and DK Metcalf. Okay, I'm being a little cute here. But one of them, I mean, they're going to have a lot of work to do to pull off one of those. How realistic, I mean, what have you thought of the Metcalf stuff? It's been a little more than 24 hours, I guess, since we learned he was asking for a trade and that Seattle was, seemingly cooperative about working with him on that. What's your thought on the Bills and DK Metcalf?
Well, first, you guys know I'm very, very much into if the Bills could do anything they can to get Myles Garrett, they should do it. I just think that is the kind of player that changes an organization. It's the kind of player that, to me, he's a generational talent with still many years left. One of the greatest to ever play his position, still with a lot of years left. I don't feel that about DK Metcalf, but I really like DK Metcalf a lot. He's a fantastic player. There's no doubt. Myles Garrett is the best, arguably, but I'd say the best at what he does in the NFL at a critical position. DK Metcalf is one of the better receivers, one of the best, I could say. He's not the best at what he does, and that position has a lot of different guys. So how much are you really, yes, you'd be improving yourself, you'd be helping yourself. I don't think I'd want to do that to the tune of a first-round pick and $30 million on a next contract. And I just don't think that sounds like the kind of deal the Bills want to be in. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't be interested in trading for DK Metcalf if they could. What did Deebo Samuel go for, a fifth? I understand different players here, but Deebo goes for a fifth. You trade a third, maybe a fourth for I guess one of their fourths for DK Metcalf, sure, or maybe a future draft pick, sure. Are you then signing him to $30 million? That just doesn't seem like the kind of business the Bills want to be in, even though he's a fantastic player and he's the kind of player they really need.
Okay. Why? Can you elaborate on that? Why would it not be the kind of move they would make, even though you think it's a fit? Is it because of his age or where that contract would take him? Is it because of like this year's philosophy and how adding this player would seem to kind of contradict what worked this year for them, I would say, overall? What's the issue?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, Mike. I think that it's the philosophy of everybody eats, and you don't have to call it that, but I do think they love the fact that Josh Allen just won MVP, in part because this philosophy was better for him. He didn't have to look for one guy. He could look around the field. He could throw it to whoever's open. He has that kind of relief of, okay, I'm just going to play football here, throw it to whomever. And I think they like that. They like to enhance that more. I think they really have a firm belief that Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and Dalton Kincaid are all going to be better than they were last year for mostly injury purposes. And, Coleman and what they said at the end of the year. Now, that's a lot to ask. That's three guys you're asking for a jump and, be staying healthy all year. I get all that. But I think that they expect that to happen as well. And then it's just a lot of it to me financially, the money. It feels like the way they've operated at the position is that they're just not interested in adding a $30 million guy. Now, does it have to be $30 million? No. Can a team sign DK Metcalf to $25 million? Sure. And maybe that becomes a little bit more, palpable for the Bills to absorb. And they say, we could do that. We could do something like that. But how many years you given them? And then at what point? And you don't have to worry about that too much. There's always ways to adjust contracts down the road. I look at that sticker price, though, and say, you want me to give up compensation and then I got to give this guy that contract. I know that the Myles Garrett is kind of the same way. Yeah. I don't care about that. This guy is way different. Yeah. You know?
I've said a few times, we spend almost all day talking about Metcalf, and, I get drunk on these ideas sometimes, Sal. It's so exciting. I would prioritize Garrett over Metcalf myself, even though it's going to cost more all around. It's going to cost more compensation to the team I'm acquiring him from, and also the contract's going to even be bigger than what you're talking about. But I think the need is greater. And I think the potential to change your fortunes on that side of the ball are also greater. Like the first thing I said when we found out about DK Metcalf yesterday, I was still at home. My son came barreling downstairs like, DK Metcalf. And I'm like, how many more points are you going to score? Right. you already scored this many points. How much? Whereas on defense, especially if I move on from Miller, which I think is totally called for, I've got the potential to have a guy that's a defensive player of the year candidate. And that is, I would totally get prioritizing it. The problem is the timing. Is Cleveland, how earnest are they being? How honest are they being about not wanting to move him? Is it all posturing? Can you work a deal before the draft? Because if I got to wait until July or August when he doesn't show up to training camp, I don't know. That's tough. I've got a team that's a contending team, and I want to put it together. And I got to make moves if I can't get a guy like Myles Garrett. But if I can get him before the draft, I would prioritize him ahead of any receiver right now.
No doubt, I agree with all that, and I don't want it to sound like I think that DK Metcalf's a bad idea for the Bills. I'd love the idea of DK Metcalf on the Bills, and maybe Brandon Beane does. The thing we don't know, it just feels like, and I've felt this since they talked at the end of the season, like that they might be a little bit more aggressive and have some philosophical changes this offseason about how they've approached things and meaning more aggressive. And maybe that's something that they would do and say, look, it was great, what we did last year on offense, but we really truly needed that number one outside guy, and we're not sure if Keon Coleman's going to become that guy after what we saw. And then Brandon Beane goes, I'll go do this, and if that's what it takes. This isn't a great draft class. We're sitting at number 30. I think a number one is still really rich to give up for that. But either way, maybe I'm talking the contract here. You know what? I'll go do that. I'll give Seattle something, and I'll sign this guy because he's going to help me and Josh Allen here for years to come. So it just doesn't scream like the kind of move they would normally want to make here for that position. They've treated wide receiver really interesting. They've almost treated wide receiver like teams have really, like they've treated running back, to be quite honest with you, over the last several years, right? Which is, sure, they did take Keon Coleman with the first pick of the second round, but they're not going out there and, getting these high-priced guys. They're going kind of bargain shopping in free agency, whether that's Deontay Hardy or Mac Hollins, KJ Hamler they pick up and say, what can we do with him? They get rid of Stephon Diggs. They let Gabe Davis walk. It just feels like that. And then Curtis Samuel signs, and he's only quote unquote $8 million a year, right? That's not a huge deal for a wide receiver.
Yeah, Diggs is the one exception there because that was this move. That was Metcalf 5 years ago, basically.
Right.
It's a similar stage in his career. He had a contract that the Bills inherited, and then I think he went through 2 years, and then they redid it, and then eventually they released him. So it didn't come immediately with a contract extension when they acquired Diggs. Whereas Metcalf probably would. He's going into the last year, and you wouldn't give up premium assets to a guy you were renting. So you'd expect that. So that's different. But, similar point in his career. And so, I don't know. But the question is now Allen is the MVP as opposed to when you acquired Diggs, he was just learning how to fly.
That's right. And I meant really since, over the last 4 years, kind of, gotcha. Since they did Diggs. Because they moved on from Diggs. But you're right, and it really did. That was a great trade for them. As much as it ended poorly with Stephon Diggs, it's exactly what they wanted to get from him, right? And they did exactly what they wanted. I remember, we have those meetings with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. Basically, every year, Bills PR invites us in, and we have these, they get embargoed, right? We can ask questions and stuff, but they say, hey, you guys can be here and you can write your stories about everything they say here. It's on the record, but we're going to wait to put everything out there. And I remember, it was right before the Diggs trade, the year before that maybe, and Brandon Beane's like, I think I got to get this guy number one wide receiver. That's kind of what he said to us. And sure enough, he went out and he did it. And that next year. So, yeah, I think that different time, different circumstance, but certainly the way they thought about how they could elevate their offense. And who knows, maybe they feel they have to do something like that now.
Still the case, Kelvin Benjamin, the only first-round pick wide receiver Allen has had. Coleman being the first pick of the second round. I mean, they one fewer trade, and they could avoid that. Metcalf would not change that either, as he was picked in round 2. Sal, thanks. Talk to you soon.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
There's also Capaccio on the Wester Hotline. His appearances are always brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet?
I don't know exactly how to describe this because obviously Allen and Diggs have both been great gets. But it's just like, to me, like kind of a Buffalo thing that like Allen but Mahomes, right? They trade the pick that goes to Mahomes, and it's Diggs but Jefferson, right? Right. So as great as they are, it's still like there's a little bit. You would love for the pick that the other teams used there to just be a total bust,
right?
You know, like Jalen Reagor instead of Jefferson or something like that.
Right.
But no, it's got to be like the best receiver in the game,
in your face, right?
And the 3-time Super Bowl winner. 803-0550 pregame for Sabres Lightning at 6 here on WGR.
Sabres pregame coming up in just about a half hour as they are down in Tampa Bay to take on the Lightning. Puck drop at 7. No Jason Zucker tonight. He's still dealing with an injury. Head coach Lindy Ruff did say the team are now trying a different approach after limited progress for him. Also down in Rochester, forward Victor Neuchev is undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery, so he will be out for the remainder of the year. In the NHL, tomorrow is the trade deadline. Nothing from Buffalo. We do, though, have some moves from today. Notably, Vegas gets their reunion with forward Riley Smith. They send the Rangers forward Brendan Brisson and a third. Smith had previously been with Vegas from 2017 to 2023. In the NFL, the Bills do begin their cap clearing procedures as they try to get cap compliant by next Wednesday, releasing punter Sam Martin, and that is reportedly going to save the Bills $1.9 million in cap space. And then former Bills center Mitch Morse announced his retirement today after 10 seasons in the NFL. And then another trade request has come in, this time from the Bengals with edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. The team is allowing him to seek out a trade. The 30-year-old has had 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. And then in college hoops, Niagara is going to finish out the regular season with a 2-game road trip. It starts tonight against St. Peter's at 7. That game's going to be over on AM 1400. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
We've spent so many hours here on Myles Garrett and now lately DK Metcalf. There are other candidates.
Yeah. Well, let's welcome Trey Hendrickson to the party, everyone.
He would be one.
Yep. That's a fine idea. He's, to me, I would say he's Max Crosby level. Like, neither of those guys is Garrett. They're close. And certainly, I mean, the production, you can't 17.5 sacks 2 years in a row here. He's 30, so like that could work. I don't know how eager the Bengals would be to trade with someone they perceive to be an AFC conference rival, but typical Bengals, right? Wasn't it like a week ago? Oh, we're going to pay all our guys. We got all this money. It's fine. Higgins, Chase, Burrow's going to work with us. We're going to do it. And like, we're not even to free agency yet. Like, yeah, we'll take offers on Trey Hendrickson. Man, that's a frustrating franchise, I think, to be a fan of.
Yeah, you've kind of been on that the whole time.
Right.
When the Bills were playing the Bengals in the playoffs and Cincinnati went to that Super Bowl, let's just see.
How long before it blows apart? And
a team like that, you kind of really need to win one when you have the chance.
Yeah.
Because they just don't seem interested in building or maintaining.
Right.
And Higgins is going to be there now? Or
well, they're negotiating a long-term deal with him off the franchise tag for, they put that on him for a second year in a row. That all reads to me like you want T. Higgins, call us. Like we want something for him. We franchised him, so we'll trade you him now and make sure we get something as opposed to let him just walk away free on the market starting on Wednesday. But to me, I would not be surprised at all if they come out of next week with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and like the other 2 guys are flew the coop.
And someone can just take Higgins in a franchise tag. So it's like someone else can sign him to a bigger deal, right? They don't have to even negotiate with the Bengals. I think that's how that works.
I think it depends on what tag they put on him.
Okay. Do they still have the transition tag? Is that what that is? I don't even know.
Well, no. There's 2 levels of the franchise tag. One that gives you rights, and I think one that doesn't. And I'm pretty sure they put the one with rights. Everything I've seen is that you would have to trade for him. I don't think you can just sign him and then you're going to have to compensate the Bengals somehow because of the tag. But it still sounds to me like they if they can't get a long-term deal done with him, and I would still be surprised if they did with him and Chase both. Although maybe if they end up divesting themselves of Hendrickson, then maybe they can see their way clear to paying the two receivers the big money. But
the reports are they're not close on Chase. How could that be if they're serious? Like, you know where you're going.
What's close?
You're going to the top.
The top, yeah. What's the most? Let me give him $1 more.
Sure.
Or $1 million more.
Whatever it
is.
But if you're not close, then you don't take that, seriously, what his value is, and how could you expect to get anything done from there? So I don't know. It's pretty scary for them.
Yeah, I think what they have always sounded like, and you're right. This has been we've talked with Joe Goodberry. I think the last time we had Joe on, Joe's a local guy, but he's a Bengals beat guy, and we've visited with him many times. And the last time we had him on, I think I reminded him, like, did I mention this a couple years ago? He's like, yep, I remember you saying they don't have the fluidity cash wise even to do these contracts. It's not even whether or not they're reluctant to do it. It's can they play with the big boys in the NFL? Can they afford the outlay that you need to have to make these big contracts work? And I've always sort of felt like maybe they don't, and that's the big part of the problem. As much money as the league makes you year over year, if ownership is not deep-pocketed enough, then you're maybe in some trouble there. So, I don't know, man. I just never thought they would keep all those guys. Even last week, as positive as it all sounded, I was looking at it going, I'll believe it when I see it. And here we are a week later, and Hendrickson is go see if you can find a better deal somewhere.
Well, I don't know either if the Bengals would deal with Buffalo, but the problem with the Myles Garrett idea has been, I think, that the Browns are seriously rejecting in public the idea of trading him. So at least in public, you have no reason yet to think, really, that the Browns will move him, or at least that they're not about to. They're not ready to. Here, this is one like Metcalf by the report, which is, okay, go look around.
Right.
He even was quoted, Hendrickson, as like, thank you for my years here, or something like that, as if like it was final. So very different, possibly very different. You might... That's the problem with Garrett, is if you have to go at least to the draft through free agency, at least. The Browns cannot, I know they're the Browns, they cannot talk the way they've talked and then move him when free agency starts, because then you're a joke. Like, it's easy to soften that language at the time if you're open to it. But no, you're representing, I'm not open to it.
Yeah, and it's not like you should need to drive the price up.
Right.
It's unless they have some unrealistic thought about it, which, I don't know. But
no, that's right.
The market value is apparent. Like, somebody's going to pay a lot to acquire this player. And, you just have to learn to live with that. And if you can't get out of the way, which is how they sound, then, yeah, I can't figure out. I think in this case, usually I'm like, and I guess at the end of it, like, I'll say a bunch of stuff here, but at the end, it still wouldn't shock me if they traded him next week, because they might feel like that's the best they're going to do and do it now, and we'll just get on with our lives and, take the shots we're going to get for saying what we said and then doing what we ended up doing. But usually you can figure, like Seattle, we want a 1 and a 3. Okay, well, you said you're open to it, so you're starting out here, and that's what you want out there. So Diana Rossini and other people are telling everyone out there that's going to cost this. I don't think that's realistic, but that's where you're starting. The Browns aren't even, they're not even doing that. They're not even saying we want 4 number ones or something ridiculous.
There's no, right.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. You don't have to go as far maybe as the GM in that situation if, privately you're hoping to make a deal, you're expecting to, but you're not going to just basically say that either. So, you just sort of, you talk around it. You don't have to go as far as I think maybe the Ravens GM did on Andrews, which was talking about how he's going to go in the Ring of Honor. someday and how much he's meant to the team, like in the past tense. Now, maybe they won't release him. I'm not sure that really makes sense financially either. I think he's still good, but that's how he sounded. Like, they don't have to go the Browns guy didn't have to mention the Browns Hall of Fame or whatever they have.
No, Cleveland to Canton is what he said. Like, and that is still the most, not the most. It just really stood out that Garrett used that in his trade demand that he sent out. Like, it was never about going from Cleveland to Canton. It was about going to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl. I'm like, whoa. Like, here was management complimenting you and talking you up and using that phrasing, and you're basically rubbing his nose in it. Like, this is sour already. And we've hardly even started. So the whole thing's been quite a spectacle, I think, so far.
Well, lots of trade talk with NFL, big names. And, of course, in the NHL, the trade deadline is tomorrow. I say, of course, like you all knew that. Maybe you didn't. It is Buffalo. Like, it's not like we're active all the time and have a lot of fun rumors to talk about almost ever. But it is tomorrow. So we'll see what happens there. If anything, there's a game tonight in Tampa, and in about 20 minutes, Paul Hamilton will join us as we start pregame coverage.
And I'm very grateful that that deadline is at 3 p.m. So that I don't have to spend an hour sitting in here wondering, like, the worst thing you can end up, for me, and I think you too, is killing them for not doing anything, and then they do something, and you sound like an idiot. The worst I'll have to do is say, well, sometimes these deals come in after the deadline. It takes a while for the fax machine or whatever the nonsense is. But at least 3 o'clock, like, I'm going to start the show tomorrow feeling like, okay, they did this or they didn't do this, and at least I know the lay of the land, and I'm not waiting for some big curveball to come.
The show maybe will never have sounded older than referencing a time when they were buyers. But I've never forgotten the one year where your phone rang, you left the room, and in about 5 minutes you came back in and you said, well, let's get to know Dinah Zubris. Right. That's the number one highlight in trade deadline history.
Right.
Is Dinah Zubris.
It was the 07 deadline. Yep.
803-0550 to call in. We've got a little bit of time. Paul at 6. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR. worked up Tampa Bay Lightning tonight off a big deal with Seattle yesterday. And as Bulldog mentioned, which was a surprise to me, it's their first meeting of the season. This may be a surprise to you. They have won 5 of their last 6 against Tampa. That seem right?
It's surprising. But I remember 2 years ago, I think maybe the high water mark of the season was an overtime goal by Ilya Lyubushkin.
Oh, baby.
A game in Tampa on a almost really a breakaway, but like a wrist shot or slap shot from way out, and I don't know what Vasilevsky was doing, but whatever, it worked. And I don't remember if that got them into a spot and then they lost it, or if they were just as close as they got to a spot. But I think they lost the next night or the same trip in Florida. Close game, like 2-1 or something. And
good game.
Yeah, and then that was the end of it. But Tampa was a big win.
Ilya Lyubushkin, welcome back to the show.
Right.
You're seeing my R2 Ruotsalainen and raising me with that one.
I'm digging deep.
It's only a couple years ago, I guess. He's in Dallas now. Zemgus Girgensons is in Tampa. He's playing pretty much every night. He has 1 goal.
Yeah, he's played every game this season for them. Yeah. And I thought, we'll see tonight. I mean, I imagine Paul's talking to him, so he's going to be in the lineup. And I saw like a projected lineup after they made the trade. When they made the trade to get Gord and who's the other player?
Bjorkstrand?
Yeah, thank you. I thought, oh boy, like maybe that's, Girgensons is maybe an odd man out in the lineup now. But the projected lineup I saw yesterday after the trade still had him holding down right wing on the third line. So he's probably doing exactly what he's always done, killing penalties and working hard and, trying to hit guys on the forecheck, et cetera, et cetera.
And not producing any offense.
Right.
This is the team that has played the most playoff games since the Sabres' most recent one. 13 years, 142 playoff games for the Lightning, including 2 cups. Yeah, that also includes a season where they were the best team in hockey and they got swept.
Right.
4.
To Columbus.
Beat them.
Yeah, not only did they win 2 cups, but they went to the final a third year in a row after that and lost.
Very Chiefs move. I guess it's hard to win 3 in a row.
I think it is. Yeah.
They came close.
Yeah. So their GM. That I was watching hockey last night. So and just combing through, I watched the TSN trade guys. LeBrun and Drager, and I think Chris Johnston is there now on that panel. And LeBrun he pulled his phone out. So I was texting with Brisebois, the GM of Tampa, and he had a great line. He's like, he sent me a long text about, trading all these picks that they've traded over the years to try to just sort of keep going, and something to the effect of it would hurt more to not try than to try and fail, or something to that effect. So they're pushing it all into the middle again, Tampa.
How about that?
Imagine that.
Imagine a team that would do that. Sabres and Lightning tonight. Paul joins us after sports. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Sabres pregame as they are down in Tampa to take on the Lightning. Puck drop at 7. Well, Paul Hamilton joining the show next to set the scene for us. Jason Zucker still dealing with an injury. Head coach Lindy Ruff did say the team are now trying a different approach after limited progress for Zucker. Also some news down in Rochester. Forward Victor Neuchep undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. Around the rest of the NHL, tomorrow is the trade deadline. Nothing from Buffalo, but we do have some moves today, notably Vegas getting a reunion with forward Riley Smith. They send the Rangers forward Brendan Brisson and a third. Smith had previously been with Vegas from 2017 to 2013. In the NFL, the Bills finally have begun making moves to get cap compliant by next Wednesday. They are releasing punter Sam Martin, reportedly going to save them $1.9 million in cap space. And then former Bills center Mitch Morse announced his retirement today after 10 seasons in the NFL. We did have a trade today. Wide receiver Christian Kirk going from Jacksonville to the Houston Texans for a 2026 7th-round pick. The Jags were originally set to release Kirk on March 12th at the start of the new league year. And then in college hoops, Niagara's going to finish out their regular season with a 2-game road trip. It starts tonight against St. Peter's at 7. That game will be over on AM 1400. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Busy times for the Sabres on the ice. Another game tonight in Tampa. We will see about off. The trade deadline is tomorrow. And the Sabres to date have done the one thing yesterday, the announcement that they have re-signed Jordan Greenway. Greenway, Zemgus Girgensons, of course, longtime Sabre now with Tampa, and before they, Lindy Ruff, all coming up on the Sabres pregame show. Paul Hamilton in a moment. Buffalo losing badly to San Jose at home on Tuesday, another low point. I guess I'll bring that up now in case we go on that because yesterday we didn't have enough time. 24-36 is their record. Last in the East, 24-30 and 6 overtime losses for 54 points, 10 back of 7th place in their division. It just continues. Tampa, always gettable here, you want to think, for the last few seasons. This year, they're having a nice season. 36-25, 76 points, third in the division, 3 points off the lead, and a snazzy plus 58 goal differential, which is the best in the division comfortably.
And they've gotten hot here recently. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They were in a wild card spot, maybe just before the Four Nations thing, but Boston's kind of fallen apart. And it might have even been Ottawa that was in third for a little bit there while Tampa was down below. But they've, like I said, they've gotten hot here and are back in the familiar spot where Florida and Toronto, they'll be duking it out, and first will matter a lot there. First avoids the 2-3 matchup there that right now would be Toronto versus Tampa, but Florida and Toronto are tied in points at 79. Tampa's only 3 back. They've played 1 fewer game than those other 2 teams ahead of them, so that could go right down to the wire, and both Florida and Tampa have been active already. Florida with the move sending Spencer Knight away for Seth Jones, who's a big name and has a big contract and has been sort of stuck in Chicago. They gave up Spencer Knight in that trade, and Tampa made the move to get a couple of forwards, one of whom they had when they won their 2 cups, Yanni Gord, back in the fold. So we'll see what Toronto does tomorrow. There's a lot of big talk about Toronto, maybe Braden Shen or something, that large.
Rantanen?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Tampa has won 9 of 10. The last 8 of their wins, all by multiple goals. So that's a pretty good run. The one loss was just Monday night to Florida, 2-1. Let's go to Tampa now. Paul Hamilton there with us. Is there slither?
A little
Kind of.
Yes.
Not really, but not like the Slither we were listening to the other night, but kind of the mid-range Slither.
Mid-range Slither. Welcome to my fantasy portfolio for 2025 as a team name. I like the vibes there. Kind of the Severance theme vibe a little bit, or Mad Men.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it. Let's go. All right. We just were talking about how hot the Lightning are. Why not just get your thoughts on that, Paul? The first meeting of the season between these teams.
Yeah, well, it's helped, too, that Vasilevsky, his numbers are back to where you would think they should be. They weren't there last year, but certainly with a .924 save percentage, this will be his 49th game. I'm assuming this will be his 49th game. And so, you're getting the goaltending, but not only you're getting the goaltending, I mean, they're right at the top of the league in both goals scored and goals against. And when you're right there, that doesn't hurt you. They're fifth in the league in goals against, and they are second in the league in goals for. So even though they got rid of Steven Stamkos, they still have Kucherov, who's third in league scoring, and are still able to put the puck in the net, even though that Stamkos is gone. And now, they're going to have a couple of one familiar name back and another one that they picked up in trades. Yanni Gourde was a big part of the Tampa Bay Lightning for many years, and a guy that I more associate with Columbus than I did with Seattle, because he got traded from Seattle, is Oliver Borkstrand. He is also here playing his first game with the Lightning.
Yeah, you mentioned that scoring and not giving up goals. Only two teams in the league, looking at the standings here, have a better goal differential than the Tampa Bay Lightning have. Washington at +60 and Winnipeg, not surprisingly, at +70 with Hellebuck. Tampa's number is +58. So and Paul, I know we're going to hear from Girgensons in a little while. We were just talking before we started pregame here that when they made the trade for Gourde and Bjorkstrand, I thought maybe Girgenson's spot in the lineup is in peril, but looking at what their projected lineup is, looks like he's still going to stay in the lineup, so good for him.
Yeah, and what you'll hear from him is, we talked about his game, and it hadn't changed. I mean, he said, my game is the way I play. You're going to see the same game that you saw in Buffalo, that the way he plays, it's just straight ahead, get in on the forecheck, and try to contribute that way. He certainly isn't going to be putting points up for you, but that's not what he's here for. So that's the job of Point and Gensel and those guys, and Hagel, who I don't mean to be a jerk, but the Sabres declined to sign out a junior who has 30 goals and 38 assists for 68 points here for a good team in the Tampa Bay Lightning. So but that's not on this group. That was not Kevin Adams. That was Jason Botterill who declined that one. But they brought Gensel in here. They lost Stamkos, but they brought Gensel in here as a 29-goal scorer this year. And, of course, you don't want to forget Kucherov, who is one of the top scorers in the National Hockey League with 90 points.
Yeah, I mean, really impressive job to divest yourself of your longtime captain, someone like Stamkos, and to still be, one of the top teams in the league is really saying something.
Yes, it is. And as I mentioned earlier, to be that high up in goals and just, figure out another way to do it. And but I think the biggest thing, too, is that, the way they're playing is just with getting the goaltending they're getting. I mean, right, a lot of goaltenders, they say, well, if you're over 900, you got an okay save percentage. And here's Vasilevsky, living back 10 years ago when 924 was the standard, and now it's the excellence if you're up at that high where he's at.
All right, well, we've done our spotlight look at tonight's opponent early in our conversation with Paul here tonight. That is always brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey. When it's game time, it's Tully time. So, Paul, the deadline tomorrow at 3. Why don't you take us through what you, because I know it's been kind of hit and miss with the team here for a bit here with the busy schedule and no practice and whatever, but you did get to talk to a couple of guys today, and of course Lindy Ruff. What is happening with Zucker?
Yeah, Lindy Ruff confirmed today that he's not sitting out as a roster management thing. He is still injured, so he's not being held out. He says they are trying something different to help Zucker recover from his injury. He said it's a different type of treatment to try to progress this thing. And he said they're hoping that'll lead to getting him back on the ice. And he admitted that they're all a little frustrated at how long this has taken. So that's why they're taking a different track with it. But it's still, I know we hadn't been able to really ask questions because we hadn't been around the team because they haven't been practicing. So today we had that opportunity, and he did say it still is injury.
How much, if at all, do you think that could impact what happens tomorrow with him? Because with the way guys are moving and what prices are being paid, I would say, especially if the Sabres are willing to retain salary, or some of it here, maybe half of the $5 million that whatever's left prorated to the end of the year, they could maybe do pretty well in a trade because Zucker's had a really good year.
Yeah, they might be able to, but I think really the only way they're looking to move him is if they know for sure they can't re-sign him. I think they really would like to re-sign him, and if it just is at the point, but tomorrow where they're like, you know what, this isn't going to happen, then I think you might see him moved. But I think that's what it would take. I think they would have to have exhausted all avenues that way and know that, you know what, this just isn't going to happen. So let's see, what they can do. But yeah, I mean, another team is going to be concerned about that. It's like, what's happening here? I mean,
right.
Why you blocked a shot and that's fine, and why is it taking so long to get him back on the ice?
What would you do, Paul? Would he be somebody that you think is important to resign?
I think it is, but I wouldn't want to go too far over 2 years. I don't know if I would go past 2 years. I mean, he is up there in age, so you don't want to strap yourself. And, he has a $5 million contract right now, and the question is, do you want to go that far over $5 million? Of course, you're going to have to give him a raise. I don't think I want to take it up to $6 million. To retain him as much as I feel he's good for the team, because if we're all being honest here, yeah, all right, you might re-sign him for a couple of years, but are you going to be a championship contender in 2 years where it would really make a difference and you would like him in the lineup? So that's what you have to evaluate too. I mean, how far away are you, and could he still be a part of it? Is what you have to evaluate.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do, I understand the position they might feel they're in, or Adam specifically might feel they're in, with their ability to attract or not attract players. So if you've got a guy that's a respected veteran and producing, bird in the hand kind of thing, he's here, he wants to stay, okay, I'll do it. But, man, I don't know. At his age, Paul, I was worried when they signed him about the cliff, and, they avoided it this year. I'd be really worried about it moving forward because he is at the age where that could just happen.
I really wouldn't go over 2 years.
Right.
I think that's my cutoff, and if he's looking for something more than that, then I think maybe you got to cut ties.
Zucker has 9 power play goals. The rest of the team has 20 for the season, which is a super low number for this late in the year. Anything else, Paul? Any hunches or advice, thoughts, things that are on your mind with respect to the deadline?
Well, I'm with what Kevin Adams has said. He told you guys on Friday. He's not looking for draft picks and that type of thing, and I would agree. Now, Yoki Haru might be the exception to that. I think it's time. If you got a deal for him, fine, and that's what you're going to wind up with, the draft picks. I think that's a different type of an animal. But I'm not looking to move guys just to load up on draft picks and that kind of thing. I'd be looking for the Bo Byram trade, something on that line. That's not an easy trade to make now, but they did it last year, so it's not impossible by any means.
Yep.
So that's the type of thing I'd be looking for tomorrow if I were the general manager.
Yeah, Yoki Haru, I think, for sure. I would say, Paul, Zucker fits that, too, for me. Like, if I'm not going to sign him,
yes.
Then, I doubt you're getting, a 23-year-old scoring winger in return for Jason Zucker at this point. It might be a nice pick, depending on, again, whether you retain money in the deal. So, as much as we're all sort of worn out by that, and I totally respect anyone who is. I am too. But it's the business you're in. If he's not going to be a part of your future and can net you a second-round pick or a first, maybe even if you retain money, then I think I got to do it, even though you're probably going to get hammered for doing it.
Yeah, no, if it is a nice pick, move it. get it and move it.
Right, exactly.
Make it part of
something else. Right.
Something else that you're going to do, just like he did, with Malenstein. They got the extra pick because they wanted Hellenius, and they knew they probably could move down to get him. So they got that second-round pick, and Kevin Adams said, I got it to trade it. And that's what he did. He needed a guy like Malenstein. He's been what you would thought he would be, and what are you giving up a second-round pick? Because that's why you traded down, so you could get that pick to trade it. And that's what he did. So, that's what I'd be looking for if you got a decent pick for a Zucker trade.
Anything else in terms of the lineup we should know?
No, that's all really. We were talking about those different things. Obviously, Zucker's not playing in this game. But everybody was out there for the morning skate. Nothing different on the power plays other than practicing it, but I didn't see any other, quote, new personnel out there with the power plays. We did not see line rushes in the morning skate, so it wouldn't shock me if the lines got juggled a little bit after that debacle last game, but we'll have to wait and see here for the warm-up.
Yeah. I know we touched on it yesterday and ended up segueing into up against the clock, low points of the season, Paul. But how was the mood around the team now that you're back around them following that? Is it just sort of, okay, back to it kind of thing? Because, I don't know, the 5-game windows feels like that feels like a month ago now to me.
Yeah, no, the 5-game windows is pretty much out the window, so you can forget about that. It was a typical morning skate. You come in and there's a little joking around in the locker room after or whatever. I didn't see everybody, staring at the floor or anything like that. They're getting ready for a game like they normally would, and they know the position they're in, and they know the spot they're in, and they know they're not getting out of it this year, and they know some of them may not be here to get out of it next year. So, you do what you got to do, and, you got to show, I think, management, you got to show the coaching staff that you're not going to quit. And, that's, I think, important that they go out there and not just, whatever type of attitude.
Paul, thanks.
Yep.
All right, it's our Paul Hamilton live in Tampa. Sabres and Lightning coming your way a little bit after 7 here. Paul's appearance with us brought to you by Equitable Advisors. Planning for your future is about more than just money. Let Equitable be your guide. And by Relax Honda. Relax, we got this. Radio only, by the way, for Dan and Rob tonight. This is an ESPN Plus game, I believe.
Yep.
So no MSG.
Hootie, if it's been said once, it's been said 1,000 times, and the Blowfish not slither.
No, definitely not unslitherable.
It wasn't clear at first. I think Cake by the Ocean was the first song, but I just sort of heard a beat. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is a little bit slither. But that would not qualify either, I have to say. And then Hootie, no. Hootie's country now for Darius Rucker for a long time.
Sure, yes. Just slapped a cowboy hat on.
Is that all it takes?
That's all it takes. Cowboy hat and a little steel guitar underneath, pedal steel, and you're all set.
Oh, the pedal steel. I like that.
There it is. Doesn't take much these days.
Are we looking for a new coach next year? Who makes that decision?
The new GM?
The current coach?
I don't know.
Wonder where his heart is on this, if he's already thinking about it.
Didn't it feel like Seth Appert was sort of brought in to be sort of, not quite, well, no, maybe not as long a relationship, but sort of Gerard Mayo, Bill Belichick. Here, we think highly of this guy, let's get him in here and get him acclimated and everything, and then, whenever Lindy's ready to walk off into the sunset, then we'll have our guy here.
Wonder if it's in writing, like Mayo's was before people knew it.
I wonder.
All right, well, Lindy Ruff and the Sabres in Tampa tonight.
When you heard you're going to have Jordan Greenway for 2 more years?
Happy, obviously, to get a guy like that signed. The, size, physicality, penalty killing, and he's a guy that's well-respected and a good character guy in our room.
We need to have veteran guys on this team, even going forward. His development this year as a guy who wasn't a, quote, prospect, but a veteran guy, how much did he surprise you maybe, or just how much did you have to learn about him through the course of the year, what he can give you?
Yeah, until the injury, I thought was really going well for us. Skates well for a big man, defends well. I mean, he's a good man, and he's well respected in our room. And I think you need those guys. You need veteran guys. He's a good guy to follow when it comes to on-ice play and the way he plays the game.
Thursday at noon, you're 27 hours away from the deadline. You got a game to play tonight. Just what kind of vibe is in your room?
You got to focus on what's ahead of you. What's ahead of us is a game tonight at 7 o'clock against a really good team that's been really going well.
Has anything changed with Zucker? Is it still an injury, or is it roster management right now?
No, it's still an injury. I can tell you the trying a little different type of treatment to try to progress this thing, and we're hoping that'll lead to getting him back on the ice. We're all a little bit frustrated with how long time it's taken.
But Jordan, I remember asking Tage Thompson a while ago. He said, "I like playing with Greenway because." What he brings and the opportunities he can bring. With him, you don't judge him by points, obviously. And it seems like guys who can score goals like playing with him because he produces turnovers and chances.
Yeah, I think his skating alone and hanging on to pucks in the offensive zone, like a big man that it's hard for the other team to take it away. I think the fact he can play anywhere in your lineup. He can play up top. He can play in the middle. He could be a net front power play guy, I believe, and he can play winger. He can play center. So I think it a lot of great options with him.
What do you think about just the way that he bought in when you got here? Seemed like right away he was kind of all in on the way you wanted to play.
Yeah, I think again it was just a style he's comfortable with. Playing the game quick. Trying to get into people and creating turnovers with just getting in front of people, cutting people off. He knows how to play the game, and I love the way he was playing.
This is kind of strange that you haven't played the Lightning yet, and we are in March. I mean, what are you expecting from this group in the game tonight? Well,
tough contest, obviously. They're playing well. They've got a dynamic power play. Obviously, their goaltender is a tough. He's a tough guy to beat. We got to create some good opportunities. We got to get traffic. We got to get second opportunities, but not easy with the way their group is playing.
What about with their additions? They're going to get jacked up even more to have a guy back who won 2 cups with them.
I think that the reunion will put a lot of smiles on their face, obviously, because he was a big part of that team that was really successful, and I'm hoping that he has maybe a little bit of jet lag.
Thanks, Coach.
Lindy Ruff and the Sabres in Tampa for the Lightning tonight.